I'd like to ask you about something you said earlier, Val, about your priorities in the transport strategy were walking, cycling and public transport. Now, in your definition of public transport, does that include black taxis and PHVs or not?
I think the priorities I talked about were healthy streets, which is walking, cycling, public transport, improving passenger public transport, and then regeneration and growth. So, you know, those are not the only issues in there. It is a broadly based document. Taxis and private hire are in here because they're an important part of the mix. And certainly the black taxis are disability accessible, and you can see that there's a strong emphasis on that. And you need, obviously, in a city to allow a certain amount of choice. But clearly, we do have a problem in that the private hire growth, I think, has got out of balance, and it is causing significant problems of congestion and otherwise.
I mean, I know in some of this you're restricted by legislation that comes from Westminster, but what plans have you got to try to restrict the numbers of private hire vehicles and their growth as we go forward?
Well, I think Val mentioned earlier on the possibility that we're considering, this is in the public domain, that we're considering the exemption from congestion charge for private hire vehicle operators. I think that may be a contributory issue that will help to that. I think it's also about ensuring that there is a balance across the city in terms of the significant role that black taxis play, and Val alluded to one very important issue, which is fully disabled accessibility of those vehicles, and also, you know, the professionalism of the drivers, the knowledge that they've got, the significant investment they've put in themselves to what is a demanding and challenging job role, and serves London very well, I think. Balancing that with, of course, the freedom that you want for private hire vehicles to be able to develop their market, and also actually recognising some very small private hire cab firms play a very important local role in some outer London communities in particular. And you know, what you don't want is where people have a real dependency on some of those small companies which have been in business sometimes for decades. You want to ensure that's looked after as well. So you're right, it is a balance. We do have limited statutory powers, as you imply, about actually putting any sort of cap on private hire vehicles. I wish we did have some capacity to do that, because actually, if you look at what they're doing in terms of congestion hotspots around the city, they are playing a significant role.
Can I just pick up on something you said there, Mike? Because one concern that I get from a lot of constituents is about private hire vehicles in outer London, particularly around Heathrow, parking in resident streets, residents permit parking bays and so on, which can cause congestion and reduce the quality of life of residents, you know, in areas where private hire vehicles collect, you know, the honeypots, as we sometimes talk about. Yes. Particularly, you know, one road that I would mention is Spout Lane North, which is very, very near to Heathrow, and I've had a particular issue with a resident there having lots of private hire vehicles parking in the streets illegally in bays which are supposed to be set aside for residents, and that's one issue. There's other issues I've had in Useley and so on, people writing to me. This is something that's happening. They're effectively breaking the law, whether it's a civil law or a bylaw or a local council law. What are you going to do about that? Have you got anything, you know, in the pipeline to deal with this behaviour, which just seems to go on and on and on, and nothing gets done about it?
Well, clearly this is a challenge, and I'm very well aware of the issue that you refer to, and again, I can share with you perhaps separately some of the detailed work that we're doing around the Heathrow area to see what we can do with the local borough around there. I think what I would say is the number of enforcement officers that we're employing within TfL to ensure that private hire vehicles, both individually and collectively, are properly applying the standard that they should be working to has increased enormously in the last year, and we've got a huge number of still in training, but we're gradually rolling those out into the street, and that, I think, is making a real difference already, Val, in terms of proper targeted activity to address not just the issue you're talking about, but more broadly the issue about applying for hire and other issues that we sometimes get raised to us where there are violations, if you like, of what private hire vehicle drivers should be doing. So I think, you know, there's a balance of activity we've got to take here, but I do agree, and I think I recognise hugely how distressful it is for residents to have that type of activity going around in their neighbourhood.
I do appreciate what you're saying, and the enforcement officer numbers have increased, but there are, you know, 2 or 3 specific locations, as I mentioned, Spout Lane North, Useley, Hillingdon Fields, and so on. Can I sort of meet with you and just flag up these, you know, specific things that constituents have written to me about, and see that, you know, in these places where there are ongoing issues over a number of years, that despite the increase, that haven't been sorted out in these specific areas, which our voters, you know, that we serve, are having their quality of life affected. We need to sort out these specific things. Can we make sure that we can do something for those specific areas?
I'd be very happy to meet with you and discuss that for
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll just pick up one other thing in the transport strategy. Proposal 74 talks about, it says the Mayor through TfL will raise the safety standards for all customers travelling by taxi and private hire vehicles through effective and transparent regulation and enforcement. Now, I've asked the question a couple of times to the Mayor and other officers. If you would let us know how many private hire vehicles and drivers are licensed with Uber as the operator. And I was told, no, you couldn't do that. Will you be able to tell us that? And is there a reason why you couldn't tell us? You know, I'm just guessing at the moment that there's 40 or 50,000 drivers, but I don't know.
Do you know, David, I'm surprised that you've been told that, because clearly, because at the moment we're doing a consultation with the operators about the future licensing fees for those operators, because there is a proposal to boost the numbers, the income that is received from operators for those licenses. That's been very much based around the number of drivers those operators are operating. So the figures have been, you know, are definitely available, and I don't see any, personally, I don't see any reason why
could you let me know
you
so
shouldn't
that,
have
you know,
them.
constituents who have asked can find out?
An understandable legal sensitivity about focusing on any one particular operator. So if you ask for all of the numbers or all of the operators over, say, 2,000 vehicles, I think that would probably be available.
That would be
but
fantastic.
if you ask for one, then there's an understandable...
Yeah, of course. Who would be the best person to ask?
But if you come through my office, I'll make sure you get
so
that answer.
thank you very much.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Fantastic.